line up.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
So you don't want to like zoom in on somebody's lips when they're talking with that thing.
No.
Because they...
Oh, I'm going to cut you off now. Hold on. Here we go. Intro. What's up, guys? This is Josh from Running Scared Motion Pictures, and I'm excited because I have my uncle here. He's been a big part of kind of why I'm doing this. He supplied us with the cameras behind us. Who are you? What are you doing here?
Oh, I'm Shelley Warren. I'm Josh's uncle, and I don't do video.
Nope.
I don't do anything video. So we were just talking about audio. I do a lot of photography, and I have actually taken pictures of Josh since he was a little kid and all the way up through. So we
hill climbing, motocross, graduations.
We started hill climb with 35 millimeter, taking how many clicks do I get? 36 clicks. So, and he still has some of those pictures.
Yeah. Of crossing your fingers and hoping they came out right? The game's changed.
100%. You can't. Yeah, that's right. So I think Josh brought me here. We're going to talk a little bit about cameras.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the cameras, I want to hear a little bit about you. Let's talk a little bit about like your backstory and, you know, kind of let's hear who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm retired.
Nice.
So I don't do anything. So, but I did do for many, many years heating and air conditioning. So I was a heating and air conditioning guy. I did it for 30 years. I started as a sheet metal guy and grew from there and became the general manager of a company, had 40 employees, worked for an international company, and was going to have a heart attack and die. So I had to get out of that.
Yeah. No, you know, so I talk filmmaking a lot, but mental health and taking care of yourself is obviously another thing that I drive home. And Shelley, I'll tell you, as a family member, I'm going to take a quick moment here and I'm going to try to not get emotional, but like,
okay.
You brought up, man, like, oh, I just can't thank you enough for all the stuff you've done over the years. Like, again, guys, like all these cameras and stuff were from Shelley. Like, since I was a little kid, he showed up, he took pictures. Like, Shelley, you've been such a good example of what to be in a man. Like, I couldn't be more happy to have you on the show. And I've learned so much from you over the years. You know, your generation and the type of people you are, like, you guys just know how to do and fix everything. Like, you guys are skilled, you know, and I've learned so much from you in the years. Like, I can call Shelley up and be like, hey, Shelley, my car, you know, I Googled this, my car's got this really weird issue and I need this special tool. And you'll show up with this special tool that like you should, and you're like, yeah, I did this one time 5 years, and you just, you're a technical guy and I love the way your brain works. And I just want to thank you for everything you've done for me. And I want to thank you for coming on the show today. So now that we got through that, let's continue. So you started with the HVAC for a long time, then you had a love for photography?
No, well, we'll go back into photography in a second. So then I stopped working there, didn't know what I was going to do, consulted for a little while, and then became a teacher. And I taught for 11 years. Taught heating and air conditioning, and then the pandemic hit, and it was just all weird, and I just don't know. I think we're losing a generation of kids. I'm really concerned about that.
I agree with you.
And so I just retired, and I'm still doing a little heating and air conditioning, all while all of that took place. Going back to being a child, going camping with my family, I got a camera, and I actually was one of these kinds. This little guy, just like this guy here,
nice.
A little Browning. Actually, I think it's up there on the board there, up there. It's right behind there. That
this
one.
Right here, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that I got that camera and it shoots.
That was that the actual one you had when you were a kid?
I believe it is.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So that's the one. So it these are little Brownings. They have one film speed, one click here. The shutter speed is a 60th of a second. That's it. That's what you get. You put 127 film in this thing. It's like a big, huge roll of film you stick in here and you roll it over. And I shot in black and white. And I went to Cowan's Gap, Pennsylvania. And we went camping. And I shot 12 pictures because that's what you could get out of a camera. And I took those 12 pictures and had them developed. And I was like, wow, they really came out good. I mean, you know, I took one right at the lake level. We had little rowboats and... You know, we had a lot of fun there. So
when you were taking the pictures, is that when it hooked you right away, or was it when you had them develop that like really like?
I think when I took them, it was like kind of just like doing it. You know, it was like, you know, just, you know, and it wasn't that. One of my pictures, I panned it, not knowing that I panned it. So do you know what panning is, right?
Turning while you take the photo.
So yeah, so I had taken the picture like this, and as I did that, it was a boat going by and it blurred the background And that picture, I can't find it. I tried to find it actually. Was so cool. That's what hooked me. Nice. When I saw that picture, I was like, that's really cool. Then I discovered, so my father was in the service. We moved around a lot. I didn't have a great educational background because we went to basically 12 different schools in 12 years of school. So we moved sometimes twice a year, sometimes only once a year. Sometimes we'd stay for 2 years. Mm-hmm. But it was like, we lived from Puerto Rico to Massachusetts. And so we, in Aberdeen, we lived in Aberdeen Proving Grounds for a while. They had a hobby shop, and the hobby shop had a darkroom. And that's what really got me going, because now I could develop my own pictures. Nice. So only black and white. So that's what prompted me. So I would take a lot of pictures and go to the dark room. I love the smell of the developer and the fixer, I don't know if you know all the process of that. Do you know?
I don't. And honestly, like, I'm not saying this to be like as a joke, but like, there's probably people that are gonna watch this that don't even know. Like, when you used to take pictures, you couldn't see what you got. Like, right? Like,
right.
100%. Explain that a little bit more. Yeah, it sounds like you're going down that path now. But yeah,
so we'll go down that path. So basically, you got a roll of film. You got a roll of film. You literally threw this in here. This here happens to be a cartridge for for Instamatic type camera. You pop this thing into here, bango, like this here, close it up, and you roll this thing forward, you push the button, you roll it, you take a picture, you roll it, you take a picture, and you get 12 shots. I tried to buy 24 because I was, that would be really good if I had 24. And then whenever I could afford it, I get 36. And it was like $2 for a roll of film. Then I could develop it basically for free because the lab was there, and there were always these military guys around that had a lot of money, and they would give me paper. So you would take this roll of film, you go into a pitch black room, no lights at all.
Because light will mess up the development of the film.
Right. So you would go into this pitch black room, you crack this thing open, you take the film out of it, and you roll it into a tray, like this cartridge. And then you put it in this container. It would be a sealed container. No light could get in there. Then you could take that sealed container, you put it down, you take the top off of it, and you pour in developer. And then you'd rock it back and forth, and you'd tap on it to make sure all the bubbles came off, because if a bubble got on your film, you'd have a spot where it didn't develop. And when you were done with that, you'd put fixer in it, then you'd wash it. Then you could take your film out, and now you could see your negatives. So you'd stretch them out, and you'd look and say, oh, they're the hell washed out. So, and so you'd do that, and then you took that, you put it into the enlarger, which is just a projector, and it would shoot your negative onto a whiteboard. And you would that's where you would actually, you'd shoot it on there, and you put a piece of paper in there that could absorb light. It had silver in it, and it would absorb the light depending on how dark or light it was. Then you took that piece of paper, you just threw it into a tray, and you developed it. So there's this whole process that you would go through.
And at any point during this process, one little thing goes wrong, and you're just like, you're done, right? Like, that's
you're done.
Like,
you're done. You're done. So today what happens is, even, and this was just a fixed lens. So it's like click, 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 click. 60th of a second, ISO 100. It could be 60. They made 64, 100, 120, 200, 400 for the speed of the film. So basically, if you took this camera with 60th and you clicked it in this room, it would come out perfectly black. You'd have nothing on there. So you'd have to have a lot of light. So there were flashes available. I did not have a flash. They were available. But the problem that I didn't have a flash was, even if I had a flash, I couldn't afford the bulbs for it, because they were like 50 cents a piece. So every time you clicked it, 50 cents was a lot of money.
Oh, they burnt out every time you used them?
Yeah, you only used the bulb once.
Oh, I didn't know
and
that.
you throw the bulb away.
Oh, wow.
So when they came out with these Instamatics, by the way, they came out with this little cube thing, which was kind of a cool thing. This has four little bulbs on it. And every time you took a picture, you would waste the bulb.
Oh, and you just turn it to the next one?
It would turn by itself. So
would it?
actually, yeah. So when you take a picture, let me make this thing go. So, okay. So this should, see, click to the other side. And so each time you brought your film across the thing, you have to rewind it. You could pop to the next section. So
how bright are those? Did it make a difference?
Oh yeah, they're huge. They're very bright. They're as bright as a flash, you know, and it's burning a piece of wire in there. So it's a little burst of wire that's on fire, basically. It looks like a piece of scrubbing pad. What is it? You know?
Brillo?
Brillo pad.
Yeah, that little white, yeah.
Yeah, like it's like a little Brillo pad in there, and it just burns. I forget what, I used to know what the chemical was in there, but I don't know what it is anymore. So these are fixed lens, fixed shutter. That's all you got. As time went on, I ended up with one of these little guys, not this one. This one here has the ability to focus. So now we have a focal length. So that's good. But we're estimating, just like you do when you're in the field, right? So we're guessing he's 8 feet away from me right now. So I'd set this at 8 feet. And then I could set my shutter speed. And then I could also set my f-stop.
Oh, wow. So it's a full manual lens on that camera.
So this is everything. Yes, this is like the whole deal on this camera.
That's where it all started to where we are now, right? Like
correct.
That's the technology.
Correct. Yeah. So this is where we wanted to get to. And then we use 35 millimeter film, and you get a roll of 36 at that point, and we could click it through and click, 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 click. So we could take our 36 pictures, not see what we're getting, not knowing if we had our focal length right. And once you had one of these cameras, you'd start to learn, like, if I set it at 10 instead of 8, it's going to be perfect. That was like the sweet spot. Or you knew that, you know, you had to keep your lens wide open if you didn't have any light, or you could close it up if you had, if it was darker. So let me just talk a little bit about, that's kind of like the mechanics of it all. So, and then we got to digital. And actually, when I first took pictures of you hill climbing, I was on a film camera. And then at some point in time, Olympus came out with a digital camera. It was a mirrorless camera. You look through the viewfinder, and the viewfinder had a little TV screen in there, and you could actually see what you were taking a picture of, and it was 2 megapixels. Wow.
Which through a little viewfinder though is probably honestly great though. I mean,
it looked great in the viewfinder.
Right?
Yeah, you couldn't blow it up. Although you have a poster hanging in your bedroom today that was taken on that camera that was blown up to 20 by 30 in your parents' bedroom.
A big picture, yeah. And it looks great. It's super sharp. I mean,
correct.
Correct.
So it did pretty good, that camera. And that was my first digital experience. But 35 millimeter film, guess how many megapixels? 35.
Really? Oh, because it's not compressed, right? It's kind of probably similar to like what a vinyl record is compared to like an MP3, right?
Right.
There's just no compression. It's just raw, true, clean.
Correct.
Yeah.
So basically, what it is they put they take a piece of plastic and they put a coating on it, and that coating they put 3 layers on it. They put what colors are they? Red,
blue, green.
Blue and green.
Yeah. RGB. No. Red, green, blue. RGB.
Right. Yeah. Right. RGB. That's right. So they put 3 coatings on it. They actually put a filter between them. There's a lot more stuff. There's like 7 layers that they actually do. But they put these layers on there, and then when you expose light to it, it starts to absorb the colors. Really? So that's how it does. And then they would develop this with what's it called? C41 processor. That's what they would develop it with. So they put it through 3 or 4 different developers. So the developer would do each layer, and then they would strip out with the fixer. They would strip out some of them, and then when they were all done, you got a picture. It's quite a process.
Yeah.
I never in the lab never did color. There were people who were doing color, but it was so hard. It was so much work.
Probably expensive too at the time, right?
Very expensive. Yeah. It was very expensive. So that's kind of the process of developing. So once I went to digital, now I could take unlimited pictures.
Mm-hmm. And you could see them too.
And you could see them instantly. Yeah. Right. So you could look back, you could see them, and you knew, oh, I don't have enough light. I have too much light. My focus, is off. So I'll just talk about why we do all this inside cameras. So how long the lens is opened, that's your shutter speed, how long it's open for. So you really want, in my world, in photography, I want that lens to stay open as long as possible, because the longer the lens is open for, the more saturation I get onto my medium.
The more light comes in to hit the sensor, because it allows more light to come in. So the better image you get, the higher quality, everything.
Correct. But the problem with that is, of course, if the lens stays open too long, it's going to be blurry because I can't stand. I'm I'm not very stable. And now they have stabilizers. They have a bunch of other stuff in there, but they didn't. So you had to be as stable as possible, hold the lens as possible, but then the people are moving. So you have that problem too. So you have all these things. The other thing is that as you leave the lens wide open, the focal length. So I'm not sure where. Let's talk about f-stops.
Yep.
So the f-stop of a lens. This lens is Josh's lens. Actually, you probably can't see this, but Josh is going to.
Yeah, we'll punch in. But those are Rokinon Cinema Primes, and what he's showing you right now is how there's actually blades inside that lens. When you open off the f-stop by making the number lower. This is the confusing part that gets everybody messed up, right?
That's right.
The lower the number, the wider those blades open. They're like gauges like for ears or wire, like if you got your ears pierced, like it's the smaller the bigger.
Yeah.
And the longer or the smaller the number, the wider that's open, the more light comes in, but it changes your, like you were talking about, your focal range. So if that thing's open at 1.8, you might only be able to focus in a 6-inch window. So if I'm here, I'm out of focus. If I'm here, I'm in focus. But the higher the number, the more closed down those blades are, and then you get a much wider focus range. So if I'm
100%,
right? Yeah.
100%. So you're dealing with a couple of different things. One is the focal distance. So how far away something is. So you can do the distance, and some of these cameras have that ability. So you're how far away something is. So he's 8 feet away. So I'd set this camera 8 feet away. At 8 feet, what's going to happen is the light from him is going to come into this lens. It's going to it's going to be upside down, and it's going to focus on the medium. Whatever it's capturing right there, it's going to be perfectly focused on it. So now I got it perfectly focused. Now, if there's something behind him that I also want focused, I'm going to have to close up my f-stop a little bit. Now, in being a photographer, you're always interested in that. Like if I'm shooting a wedding photography, the only thing that I'm doing is I'm focusing on one thing, the bride's eyes. So, because I know that she's the one who's driving everything. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I say that?
Whoever pays you has to be the happiest people in the room, right?
Even if somebody else is paying you, she's the one that has to be.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
She has to be crystal. So I would, if I were shooting Josh was my bride, I'm going to focus on his eyes. I'm going to focus on his eyes. That's it. And then I'm going to move my camera around. So modern cameras are so great. I can take this camera, I can focus it right on his eyes. I push down partially on my button here, my shutter button.
You half push it, right?
I half push it. So you half push it, locks in on her eyes, or his eyes, and then I worry about the rest of the scene afterwards, and I push the button. Now, if the rest of the scene has blur in it, I'm going to close up my f-stop. I'm going to close up my f-stop because I need everybody else to be somewhat in focus. I can't accept a little. When you're filming, this is something that amazed me. When you were filming Eddie, when I saw you filming Eddie, I was like, what the hell's he doing? Number one, can I jump to Eddie right now?
Yeah,
because Eddie is important to me. Because I learned a lot at Eddie. One thing is, all the people that are associated with Josh in Running Scared Productions do their own thing. When they come to when they're at your scene, like you're getting ready to film. Number one, there's not like, Josh is not driving everybody say, okay, stand here, do this. Like, it's not like a dictatorship. It's more like, this is the scene we're going to shoot. This is where we need people to be. And then they sort of know what to do. You really have a good crew in so much. They're not interacting.
Oh, the dogs are going off. Sorry. Maybe Eddie's here.
Maybe Eddie's here.
Probably male.
So the thing that was amazing to me was you have such professional people with you, and you've surrounded yourself with them, and they've done some shooting with you. That's what takes place. So they're not, you're not pushing them around or anything like that. They've read the script. They know where they're supposed to be. They know what they're supposed to do. The camera guy knows. The audio guy knows where to put the mic. The clipboard guy knows where to clip the thing and make the clack noise.
So happy he just got accolades on that.
Yeah. So like, I mean, everybody's like, they just jump right in. And then the next thing is they shoot a scene and they go, okay, we're going to go to this scene. Has nothing to do with like what you're going to see. Like, it's not.
We don't shoot in chronological order.
Not
we jump all around. Yeah.
Right. So it's like whatever's convenient. You're like, okay, let's jump over here. And then, we jumped into the car. We go, okay, we're going to do the car scene. Oh, we need to black this out. Everybody moved. Everybody just went to work.
Yeah.
It's like crazy. So that was one of the things that really amazed me. And then you're also saying, go ahead and ad lib this, Nicole, when you did the scene on the porch and she came out of the house to be surprised, I was surprised.
Yeah,
and she did it like 4 times in a row, but every single time she's like, I'm like, oh,
yeah.
And like, I knew you were standing there.
Like all this stuff we're talking about technical is super important, right? Because technicality is what starts your journey, learning your f-stop. But at the same time, what I love about art is there's also a feel and a flow. One of the biggest accolades is like, I knew when I shot that Eddie car scene, that driving scene, like, again, like it's not if you're a great cinematographer and you watch it, it's nothing super impressive. But the way we shot that and what we did with it for it to be that good, like there was nothing technical about that. In fact, I think technically everything we did was probably wrong, but I had a vision and a style and I knew what I wanted to do. And having people, like trusting those people, when they come on board, like as a director, that's what's been really hard, because when I first started, I didn't know what I would want. I would tell people, do whatever you think looks good, because I couldn't see the final vision. Now I can see the final vision, but I also have to accept, like, my way is not always the best. Like, I want to see what other people bring to the table in their collaboration. The quarterback, we talk about Monday morning quarterback. How easy is it to see the outside? I get that on filming days or whatever. I'm in the middle of it, juggling 1,000 things. So if we have the time, which having great cast and crew now, and even you, when you were on the scene of Eddie, you did behind the scenes photos for us. You grabbed lights, you moved stands. And I remember when we were doing a few of the scenes in the woods with the lights, you're like, are you sure? Like it just didn't make, right? It didn't. But I'm like, no, like I know this is going to work. But because I have those people that can now do that, it gives me more time to tell the actors and actresses like, okay, I've got what I need. Yeah, I've got what I need. So now try it this way. And I think people really enjoy working with me because I do let them do that. I have to make sure I get a product that I'm happy with, but it doesn't, like, I'm willing to go with the flow and kind of see how things unfold. Like, I want the roadmap and I want to be on par, but at the same time, again, art's fluid. You got to be willing to go with it, So that's kind of why I think, the car scene and even Nicole, and like a lot of people, like, I don't direct a lot of that. They kind of do it. And yeah, there's times where it's like, I understand the long game, so I have to make some slight adjustments, but the people I bring on, they read the script, they put in the time. We do table readings. And quite frankly, I bring them in some of the writing process too. So they're able to kind of give me some input on how their character is going to go or feel ahead of time. And I think it's important for that collaboration.
Right. Well, you did. I think you did a good job with that.
No, I appreciate that.
I
think it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. I was, thank you for allowing me to be there and
thank you for
do a little bit of things, Well, I mean, even like the little things like the car scene. You talked about the car scene. We're like, Eric, you got to move the steering wheel. He goes, I can't. It's locked.
Yeah.
So I go, we need a key. So did you put the key in? Then we got a beep. So then we had to deal with that.
And then we dealt with the battery in the car dying from.
Right.
So the scene where they pull up to the house and they actually get outside the car, like the audio is not great in there, but there was nothing I could do because we couldn't shut the car off. And I didn't bring I do have wireless lavs and stuff. I didn't bring them. We were on the fly. I mean,
right.
And that's the thing.
We're up in the woods. There's no power.
Yeah. Every ounce of that light we provided, and that's what's fun about it. But again, it's technical and we work hard, but at the same time, that whole Eddie shot, like we flowed. It was about just like what works, what doesn't, you know? And again, like I didn't expect Matt and Eric to play the cops exactly the way that they did. But the second they hit their first line together, I was like, that's it. They knocked it out of the park. Like they understood it. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad.
Oh, and I still have that line in my head.
Which one?
You making that shit up?
Oh yeah, right. No, right.
That was a classic. Was that in the script?
Yeah,
That's
I wrote
in the script.
Yeah.
Oh,
so it's funny
good.
because when I wrote that, I wanted to keep it somewhat true to like Ed Gein and what happened, but at the same time, like I didn't want to just be that vile and like, go around, like, so I wanted to keep some lightheartedness to it, and with the song and everything, I think that's why Eddie, in my opinion, was somewhat successful, because it's got like that. It's got like a serious tone where there's like some things that happen, but at the same
very
time,
serious.
yeah, but at the same time, it doesn't take itself too seriously. You know, but I'm glad you brought up Eddie, because that'll bring us into the next section. So you talked about digital. You, me, and my cousin, your nephew Adam, we ended up buying. We got 3 Canon 60Ds, right? That was 10 years ago now.
Yeah, I still have it.
Yeah, do you really?
I still have my 60? Yeah,
my buddy Little Joe has it now. My military buddy. Yeah, he. At the time I was talking to you guys, we were just kind of all into photography and stuff like that, and it was right then when I bought that camera, I knew I wanted to go down the video route, and you and Adam definitely are more photographers in my mind. You guys really seem to like that. And I like photography, but they say, you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And I'm like, 1 second of video is 24 frames. That's 24 pictures, you know? So it's like, and we bought the Canon 60Ds. Talk a little bit about that, like about the process on that. I talked you guys into it. I know, like I was like, these are the cameras.
I know.
We shot on this for years, and you can lead it into the boxing and that stuff.
I literally have over 300,000 shots on that camera.
Do you really?
And it's still, I cross my fingers that it keeps going, because it hasn't gone back to the factory.
You've never serviced it?
I never serviced it.
Nice.
No. You know, now I have a 5D Mark III, which is it's a full frame camera. It's actually into the professional realm. But before that, I never had a professional camera. And I've done weddings, and, you know, for people that I know, I'm not a professional photographer.
I think you are. We have different opinions then, but
yeah. Well, each time that you take a picture, so you're capturing a moment in time, and now I have the ability, because it's not just a snapshot. I can do snapshots, and I've done a lot of snapshots of family gatherings. We were just in Florida. I mean, you know, your father's putting them all up on Facebook. And those, I mean, a couple of them are close to photography type quality pictures, but most of them are just snapshots of what happened, an event or something that took place. Some of them are, you know, to make a photograph, though, to actually make a photograph, there's a different process that takes place. To actually make art, it's a different process that makes place. So you're not just saying, okay, click, and I have because everybody has one of these now. So now you're actually, when you start to say, oh, I'm gonna make a photograph, now you're going to have to decide what you want in focus, where the people are going to be, and you're doing that when you're doing filming. You're actually saying, okay, I need this person here, I need them facing this direction, I need this here, I need this here, I need this light, I need their face to stand out, I need their face to be flatter. So you start to think about all that stuff when you're going to do a photograph. When you're going to do a snapshot, it's just like, okay, I got the scene, done. So it's a little different. And modern cameras give you the ability to do that very, very quickly. So you can speed up the process where you're not waiting for 3 weeks for film, or you're sending it out at the hour photo lab. It's so nice. You can click it. You're like, oh crap, it's not good enough. Click, 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 and then you're bringing it in closer and closer to where you want, and then you go, okay, now I got the shot.
But like you mentioned earlier, Shelley, you were talking like when you got a roll of film originally, you could only get 24 pictures total. Now what you're talking about, though, like you can take 24 pictures a second, and then you could look at them, and like even more than that at times, right? So the game really has changed a lot, right? Like
phenomenally. And I still don't do that. As a matter of fact, I will. You mentioned boxing. So we go to the boxing match. We're going to take pictures. I'm taking pictures one at a time, because that's what I do. I'll focus, I anticipate, and I know that the hit's going to come because I can see the guy. I try and lock in on him. I'm constantly locking in. I'm constantly, I've set my depth. I've done everything I've got to do, and now I'm just waiting for the scene. And when it happens, as it happens, I'm clicking maybe 2-3 shots max. When I go to a football game, because I shoot a lot of semi-pro football, I go out, I'm shooting semi-pro football. I know where the quarterback's going to be. I know he's stepping back. I know he's going to launch that ball. I'm ready. I've locked in on him. I'm waiting. When you stand next to a news photographer or some professional photographers, they do everything in burst. So it's like, and that is not photography in my opinion. Yeah. They'll get a good shot, but they took 20 of them. Mm-hmm. They took 30 of them. They took 100 of them in a 2-second burst. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to go through each one and say, okay, that's the one I want. They want that precise moment, but they didn't get that precise moment. Yeah. It was just, so the thing that happens with video is you can take a slice of a video and say, it's art. That picture is like, that's the exact scene you want. But you never get the depth that you want in it when you're doing that. When you're filming, when you're doing video, you're not saturating the film. You're just doing like, because the eye can't adjust to everything that's taking place. So the next one, the eye can't adjust to that. So when it's moving, it's absolute art. It's beautiful. But if you took one slice of it, you'd say, that ain't a good picture. Yeah,
and plus it's low res files. Like, there are not a lot of megapixels when you take a still image out of a film, or like, a recorded image like that. Yeah,
correct.
No, absolutely.
So, but you don't notice that when you're watching a film because it's changing to the next scene.
Yeah, well, that's frame rate, motion blur, all that stuff comes in there, right? Yeah. Well, there's two things I'm going to pause on real quick. So you brought up semi-pro football. I want to give a big shout out to Adam and the family and stuff. Their team just
the Blitzen Bears.
Yeah,
they just won national championship.
Yeah, so that's super excited. So congratulations, guys. Good job on that. And the other thing I'm going to bring up, it's going to sound like it has nothing to do with it, but I was getting my hair cut at this place one day, and it was like one of those places, like they use like straight razors and stuff. And this guy was sitting there and he's talking about just like shaving, and he's like, razor burn never used to be a thing because you didn't go over your face a million times. You did it proper. And I was listening to this guy just talk about like the art of shaving, and like it used to mean something to people. Like they put process and time into it. When I think about you taking pictures, like you said, you don't burst shoot. You take the time and the care. Like that's what a photographer does. It's not just about like, we've lost that a little bit. I think because technology's made things easier, but the problem is it's easier, but you should still learn the basics because there's also art in there. When we were talking about the depth of field and the blur, you can use all that stuff for artistic choice if you know how to use it. All the rules you learned can be broken if you know what you're doing. But people, they stopped learning the technical aspect because they're like, well, I can put this on sports mode with the little guy running and I can now take more pictures. And they're So I've always, when I've looked at your pictures, that's what I've really respected is it's like, there is a thought process behind every photo taken with an intention. Like I feel like they weren't bad shots. So that's
I do take bad shots.
No, I'm not saying you don't, but again, like I just feel like your good shots are more purposeful for sure.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So I try and have a thought pattern that goes behind. I mean, sometimes you have to just take pictures to take pictures because, especially at a football game and you need a whole, everybody needs to get a picture in there. So I try and get the whole team. I try and get every member. I try and sit on the offensive line, offensive linemen. Nobody takes pictures of offensive linemen,
But I try every play, Shelley.
They do, and they're very necessary. But so you got to. That's part of my part of the thing is I try and bring everybody in because every team person they're all serving a purpose. Mm-hmm. They all need to be there. Yeah. Actually, in Adam's last game, the guy who got the trophy, like the most valuable player trophy, was a defensive guy. It was a guy who sacked the quarterback a bunch of times. So nice. That's the guy who got the, it wasn't one of these guys scoring touchdowns, which is very unusual in those kinds of games.
Yeah. Well, you know, like not for nothing, but like for me in filmmaking, like we talked about me and my team, it's not much different than football. Football, everybody's got a position to play. They've got like my joke about the linemen, they don't do the same thing every time. So like Adam's team's gonna be lined up outside my house. Like, oh yeah, we do that.
Yeah.
No, it's like, but again, like when you work cohesive and you understand the bigger picture, right? Like the lineman understands that he's supposed to smash into this guy and stop him, but like there's a bigger picture.
Right. Where's he got to put him? He's not just smashing into him. He's got to put him in a certain position so that he creates a hole.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more involved than that. And just like filming Eddie, when you said, just take this light and run around, and we were running around like crazy people.
Oh yeah.
That was a crazy thing.
It was so much fun.
That was, digging the hole. That was like, it's kind of a hole. Yeah, this will work.
Yeah.
It looks just like a hole.
Yeah. Well, it was actually a mound of dirt that we saw. But again, if you put the camera a certain way, that like artistic flair, like that's what I love about this stuff. And when you were talking about, how old were you? Do you remember when you first got the lens that you could adjust with the f-stop and all that stuff?
I probably was out of high school. I was in college.
Was that a game changer for you? Was that,
absolutely.
When it first happened, were you using it for artistic style? Did you guys realize that right away, or was it more technical? Like you open up the f-stop for light?
I think I probably, I didn't realize at first what all of those things meant. Mm-hmm. But after I took enough pictures, then I realized what I was doing. Then I could take it to the next level. Yeah. When you first see it, it's like, just, go as wide as you can all the time. Get as much light as possible.
Even now, that's what people think in all fairness a lot of times.
Right, right. And that's not necessarily the case. The thing that happened, the medium that's capturing light today, this was ISO. So ISO is explain ISO.
It's how sensitive the light or the sensor is to light. But the problem is the higher the ISO, the brighter the image, but the more noise you introduce. So the thought process is the smaller the number on your f-stop, the more natural light that comes in and hits the sensor, the lower your ISO can be, so the less noise your image has. That's why people try to do that way. But we talked about it's an art. There's a lot more that goes into it than that. A lot more
that goes into it than that. So in these cameras, these old cameras, you had an ISO of 64, 100, 120, up to maybe, I think somebody was making 600. But if you used 400, I remember I took a picture of you riding your motorcycle, and I thought it was a great shot. I'm like, it was the best shot ever. I was like, oh, this is great. I had it blown up, blew out all of it just got grainy. Yeah. Because what ends up happening is as you go up in the ISO, you grain out. Mm-hmm. And in these cameras, when you got to 400, it was completely blown away. Today, sensors are much more capable of changing the ISO, but the sensor isn't actually changing. Here, you're actually changing the medium to get the ISO to change. Mm-hmm. So you're pushing the film. You were taking 100, but you were pushing it to 400, and so it would grain right out on you if you blew it up at all. But today you can go. I think you don't have Canons, right?
I don't think just the Black.
So the Canon R that Adam shoots on, mm-hmm. I think it goes over 100,000 ISO. So you can shoot a pitch black room, take a picture, and it looks like it's daylight, and it still gets grainy when you blow it up. Mm-hmm. But the bottom now you can go to like 10,000 and still take a picture, and it doesn't grain out. So you don't lose your color, you don't lose your saturation, you don't lose all of those things.
Yeah. So I was impressed even on the Black Magics. We ended up Mike and I did the walkthrough through Demented FX, and those do go up to 6,400, but it's not usable like for real. Typically, I don't know why. I had it at 32 and I was like, you know what, I'm going to try it. I bumped up to 6,400 and I actually got usable shots that day out of it. There's so much more depth in what those things are doing now as opposed to that. It's crazy.
So I have no knowledge of how they're accomplishing that or how that happens.
Sony's the one you want to talk to about that. I don't know what it is. Like, I'm not the biggest Sony guy. Matt was a big Sony guy for a long time. He's a Fuji guy now, but Sony, their image is very sharp. Like they've got that down, and their low light capabilities, there's nothing that can touch a Sony camera in low light. It's not even a thing. but I don't love the Sony color science as much. There's something about that Fuji. I use the Eterna look. There's the Fuji right over there hanging out, and that Eterna look, I can literally match that with the Black Magics and things like that. Like, there's so much depth in there. And then you get all the stuff that you're talking about, you know, your ISO, your f-stop, your shutter speed, but then you get like, you'll hear like there's like 8-bit or 10-bit. It's like you get into all that. It's so complicated. And to the point you were talking earlier, so now you have this cool camera with all these functions. So it's kind of even hard. I guess the way I was asking the question is, did you use it as an artistic style? But it's hard because you can't adjust your f-stop. Like, what are you going to do? Write it down and be like, hey, the third picture I took, I shot at f4. What I think we take for granted is I do this now. I set up cameras, I bring it up to a monitor, and I will move lights around in real time, and I see what makes a difference. So when I grabbed my Fuji, when me and Matt got the Fujis, we went out to Northampton and we were shooting everything. But like, as you shoot, you just adjust it right there on the fly. So like when I learned,
so you get better fast.
And
your learning curve is like,
but then you know, like, okay, so when I do it, when I use f22, everything is perfectly sharp. But if I shoot at f1.6 and I bring my subject a little closer, I get this beautiful. And that's where the creativeness comes. So I feel like it's funny. My dad talks about, you know, when he learned how to play music, he used to wear out records. Like you go back and you play this.
Because you,
it's, but at the same time, again, like I'm so thankful for the technology that we have. But again, like learning the basics and understanding why some of these things work, there really is like a value to that, you know? Well, we shot, so we end up, you shot on all this stuff. And then when we got the Canon 60Ds, you said that was like your first like quote unquote professional-ish camera. Yeah. How much of a game changer was that for you? Did that really like?
Oh my God, yeah. Because then I could shoot. Well, number one, you could shoot unlimited because I had 2 cards. I could shoot 2,000 pictures. Yeah. So that was a game changer for me. And then it didn't cost you anything. So I mean, it was like free. So those things were, and today, like if I'm going to photograph something, like really photograph something, I have all these weird things that I do. And one of the things is like, I'll take my hand and I'll do this here with my hand. And so like, I'm like, okay, so if any sort of a shadow on a person, now you can go into Lightroom and you can fix it. I still hate developing. I really don't. I do not like spending a lot of time. You spend buku hours like editing.
That's why I have these bags under my eyes still to this day.
Yeah, I mean that's like a true, to me, a true professional photographer needs to spend twice as much time editing as he did taking the pictures, because that's where the kind of the rubber meets the road. And I am not an editor. I love to shoot. I love to be there. I love the scene. I love to build the scene. I like to do all of that stuff. But what I don't like to do is, and I don't even want to see the picture afterwards. I mean, I look at the picture and then I analyze it and I go, oh, I should have done this. That's what happens to me. So you probably do the same thing when you're looking at Eddie, or looking at, any of your work. You're like, your music videos. You're like, oh, that's a great music video. Yeah, I could have done this better. Yeah. So the things that, I'll do if I'm in a situation where I'm going to take a real photograph, that's what I'll do. I'll put my hand up and I'll bring it around and I'll say, okay. And then I'll try and say, okay, just by moving your head a little forward or a little back, you'll lose those bags. Mm-hmm. You'll sharpen up the eyes.
Or the way you turn the slightest.
Catches in the eyes. You'll get the shadow across the nose. Maybe you want it. Maybe you want to make the nose stand out a little more. Maybe you want to make it go flatter. Maybe you want to, so you'll do all of those kinds of things. If you're really shooting a photograph, if you're taking a snapshot, who cares? Put a flash on it, hit it, Yeah. I mean, and I see a lot of wedding photographers that do that. They show up and all they do is they just throw all their flashes out and then they just start flashing, and then everything's flat, and that's what they get. And I mean, they're consistent. They're going to end up with the same thing all the time, but it's not art at all. And I think people should demand that a little bit.
That's what I'll tell you. Even when I shoot weddings, I'm not cookie cutter. Like, I want to talk to the bride and groom and I want to figure out their personality. Like, really, like, that's exactly it. Like, I don't shoot the same thing every time. Like, everybody's got their own style and their own feel and their own flow. And I feel like that's why I love the arts to this. Like, I want to tap into that. And like, you know, my sister's wedding video, we had watched it and she had paid like thousands of dollars. And I'm not kidding. This is not a joke. The first, I think 12 minutes of the video is a camera set up on a tripod and people walking down this path to take their seats. No cuts, no fit, no, not like and I was like, she paid for this. Like, oh my God. Like, and she got married before I got into video, or else I obviously would have done it. But I'm like, I hate that. Like, I want to capture the moment. Like it's funny. I don't actually like first looks, but I like when people do first looks because I can capture that moment easier. And it's like, you know, it's tough because when I'm shooting weddings and things like that, there's times where you don't get a do-over. The bride walks down the aisle.
You got one shot.
One time. Yeah, right. She comes down one time. There's no way I need you to do that again. And it's like, that's where the nerve-wrackingness comes in. And there are times, like, especially when the bride's walking down, like, you got to bat shoot because you have to get that shot. Like, so you can't, but it sucks because like with video, I feel like with me shooting on the Blackmagic, I shoot weddings on Blackmagics and people are like, go on the forums. They're like, you can't do that. There's no image stabilization. It's hard. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of drawbacks, but my wedding videos are cinematic and artful and they look good. And like, I wouldn't sacrifice that. But the reason I'm able to do that is because I got really into like reading and books and stuff when I first got into filmmaking because I didn't know anybody that did like film. Like you did photography, so I learned a lot from you that way. And yeah, just going out and shooting. And again, like you're the one who taught me f-stop, ISO, you know, when we first got the cameras and stuff. And we had talked earlier when we first got here. Like I think it's easier to bring the things that you've learned like from filmmaking to from photography to filmmaking, because a lot of the things are similar, but it's harder to bring the filmmaking aspects over to photography because
you're sloppy.
It's different. Like you're using like nodes, like some of it's a little bit different. So like for me, I think because I had learned the basis of photography through you guys, I had learned f-stop, depth of field. The other huge bonus I did for myself is I feel like when we got those Canon 60Ds, I never one time put it in auto mode. Never. I wouldn't allow myself to do it. So by doing that, like I didn't get that laziness of like, oh, I can just take a picture. Like every time, like if I walk into a room now, even if I don't have my camera, I'll be like, this is ISO 400. I'd probably be at 2 point. Like I think about that. Like I can walk in and I can feel it, you know? And I would not have done that if it wasn't from working with you, shooting with you. So again, like that's why I said like earlier on when I got emotional in the beginning of this, like you've taught me so many things like that. And I feel like that's why I wanted to have you on so people could like hear like kind of how you've come and how you've grown up through, you know, taking pictures and kind of where we got. So that was super awesome to hear. Is there what's your plan with photography now? Like what do you see yourself doing? Are you
still just fooling around with it?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be honest.
I'm not a professional.
You're going to be on board doing a lot more stuff here. Now that you're retired, I'm going to make you do a lot more stuff here. So we're going to see you around. So
yeah.
The way I like to end these, Shelly, is I ask you a few more questions. Couple quick things here. So no particular order, no number, but just give me some of your favorite movies and why.
You see, that's the problem for me.
You don't watch movies?
No, it's not that I don't watch movies. I watch some movies. Here's a missing part of my personality. Like I'm very technical. I can do things. I can learn things. I can fix anything. You know, I can do all of those kinds of stuff. When it comes to movies, because when I was a child, we didn't watch TV. We had one, but we weren't allowed to watch it. So basically, until my whole childhood, until even up until high school, the only thing that we watched on TV was Disney, The Wonderful World of Disney. We would watch that on Sunday nights. We were allowed to watch that. We watched some news. But so when you go into movies, so what ends up happening is because I didn't have a childhood of movies. Like there's certain people who have a childhood of movies, right? I see it. Yeah, I know. Yeah. And I've seen some of those movies. I saw John Wick. So some of those movies. So what happened is when I started watching movies, I didn't associate with those people. So I don't remember their names. I don't have like, you know.
That nostalgia.
I don't have that.
Yeah. Eric and I talk about that all the time. Yeah.
So what ends up happening? Yeah. So you guys have that, you know. And so when you say, "Hey, what's your favorite movie?" I go, "I don't know." I don't have that connection to movies.
Do you have
like,
you've traveled?
So if I was going to say something, here, I'm going to say something really odd. Here's a movie.
Shelly's saying something odd. Oh, here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Sleeper. Have you ever heard of that movie?
I don't think so.
Woody Allen Sleeper.
Okay.
So he's a horrible guy. I mean, he did horrible things. I mean, he slept with his stepdaughter. I mean, he's not a good person. But that movie, when that movie came out, I remember I went to the movies to see it. It was probably in the 70s sometime, maybe late 70s. I don't know. So I go to see the movie, and that movie resonated with me because it had a Volkswagen Bug in it. It had GMOs, food that has been altered. It had self-driving cars. It had all of the things that you look at now and you go back, it's like all that stuff happens. It really did.
Yeah.
It had all kinds of, so just go in and grab that movie if you can find it.
We'll watch it someday. We'll get it. We'll watch it.
And it'll be, you'll be like, wow, what a weird movie. It's like a B movie now, probably, nice.
Well, you're well traveled too, so I guess this is kind of a hard question too, but what about favorite piece of art then? I mean, you've been around the world, you've seen things. Is there anything else that stood out that really just resonated with you? I mean, you've been to the Vatican? You've been to
we've been to the Vatican.
So
the Vatican was amazing.
Was it what's something that you've seen in your experience that literally just stopped you dead in your tracks that was just like so beautiful you'll always remember it? Other than my face. With a beard.
I would say one of the things that was surprising to me is we went to France in 2018 for the 100th year anniversary of the end of World War I, because my grandfather was in the World War I. And so we went there, and we went to Verdun. And in Verdun, there's a cathedral there that was built 500 years after Christ. 500 years after Christ was dead. And it is a hand-carved wooden sculptures all around the whole thing. It is the most amazing building. So that was pretty intense. That building was really intense. We also went to Belleau Woods. It's where my grandfather was injured. So we got to go out into actually we were in the town at a chapel that he was brought to when he was injured. So it's pretty, so that was pretty moving. So that's a pretty exciting place to be. But we did go to, so I've been to France. I think Alaska was probably one of the most exciting places to go to down the lines of nature. The place is incredible. I mean, when you think about clear cutting wood and stuff like that, and literally when you get on a boat in Seattle, Washington, and you go to Alaska, you're going 500 miles and all it is woods. So there's no houses. So there's a lot of trees still in the world.
Hopefully.
I've been told. There are. So I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Awesome. Well, Shelly, thank you so much for coming on the channel today. I'm sure we're going to have you back again. I'd love to actually, I want to do more like tutorials and breakdowns and stuff, and you'd probably be the guy to have on to talk about, the basics of it. So
some of it.
We appreciate your time, and I'm sure we'll see you again.
Thank you.